Warning: the following content may not be suitable for all listeners and contains crude humor that may be offensive to some. Listener discretion is advised. This is Satire is Not Dead. Hello everybody, I am your host Harvey, and we're back with more personal stories, satirical articles, and some real news that could be mistaken for satire. This program is brought to you by Cinescape Media. You can learn more about this program and their other programs by visiting their website, cinescape.media. Before I came in to record my podcast, I was sitting in the front room, and we have a Shih Tzu. They're good dogs. They're very people oriented, but they're kind of needy for my taste. But it's really my wife's dog. And I noticed I was finishing up a video game called The Last of Us Part 2, which is very good, a very satisfying game to play, and I finished with it, and I was happy with the ending. But anyway, I noticed when I was sitting in my chair with the controller, and I put it down when the credits were rolling, because I'm the type of person that just watches the credits all the way through. Because sometimes on games and movies they have some kind of bonus content, maybe a little cinematic something, especially in video games. Sometimes they'll have a hint at another version, a sequel to what you just played. But anyway, I sit through it, and I was just sitting in my chair, and our Shih Tzu she was laying on the floor, staring at me. I mean, she needs attention. That's just how she is. Ugh, but whatever. That's just the kind of dog she is. She's very loyal and very good. But I noticed whenever I would look at her, I'd turn my head and look right at her. Her tail would pop up, and Shih Tzus have a little curly cute tail. If it didn't have hair on it, it would kind of look like a pig's tail. And when I would look at her, the tail would come up, even if she was laying down or standing. And when I would look away, it would droop back down real slow, because I could see it in my peripheral vision. She's so stupid. And when I would look at her, it would be like, and then when I was in my peripheral vision, it's just lit. I was intentionally watching. It was like, and I just kept doing this. I'd look at her, and then it would go back up, and and then. But I noticed one time whenever I decided, I looked away, and it started to go down, and I looked right back at her real quick. It was like, I don't know what that's about. It's like in the 60s and 70s they had mood rings. I think Josie has a mood tail. Oh, and one of the other very distinguishing characteristics of, I don't know about all Shih Tzus, but ours, I kind of think it is kind of the breed. They have this long hair on their face, and their tear ducts, I don't know if you call it crying or whatever, they ooze. I don't know, it makes you want to gag to think about it. And so it gets caught up in her hair, and yes, we do bathe her and take care of her, but I mean, you'd have to bathe the damn thing every day to avoid that. But when she gets on my lap, she really likes to spend time on me and my wife's lap, just being petted. And what she'll do is put her face look right at us, and the smell. I just can't take it. And as soon as she does it, I'm like, I'm sorry, you have to get down. And I revert. My wife doesn't like it, but I refer to her as old dumpster face, because it just smells like garbage. So anyway, it was so meaningless, but whatever. I was watching a podcast by a comedian named Nick DiPaolo the other day, and this is not, I'm very late to the party on this. But that's fine. I can be stylishly late. he Yeah, his podcast, he talks about current events and does some funny stuff. And he's been bitching and wailing and really ranting about the mayor of Chicago, Lori Lightfoot. How she and I got a picture of her printed, and it's really, the visual is amazing. I wish if I could put a link down somewhere to that you can follow to the picture, but all you have to do is Google Lori Lightfoot. Excuse me, Lori Lightfoot is Beetlejuice, or Lori Lightfoot looks like Beetlejuice. So, one of his staff members made a cover for his YouTube show with the mayor, and they superimposed a picture of Michael Keaton's version of Beetlejuice right behind her. And she looks exactly like him. Oh my gosh, she got the whoop tie hairline and dark circles under her eyes. It's terrible. And I don't care about, her job, how good a job she's doing or whatever.
What are your qualifications?
Well, I attended Juilliard. I'm a graduate of the Harvard Business School. I travel quite extensively. I lived through the Black Plague, and I had a pretty good time during that.
The visual is just so freaking funny that I can't get it out of my head. And I've been watching clips of just little tidbits of Beetlejuice, and every time I see her picture, I see Michael Keaton.
Hey, come on! You gotta work with me here. I'm just trying to cut a deal. What do you want me to do? Where are you? You bunch of losers! You're working with a professional here!
And we had an interesting week down here along the Gulf Coast. We had what's called, it always starts as a tropical wave. And I don't know where it originated, but it moved across the Gulf of Mexico, and we got a little bit of rain from it. But, the southern horn of Texas and some of Mexico is taking the brunt of it. I don't know if that became anything too serious because, I'm like everybody else. If it doesn't come real close and affect me, then I don't really pay attention to it. And it's not that I don't care. It's just, that's the way it is. We all work for a living, and, when we see it's not, excuse me, when it's not going to be a factor for us, then we just kind of, blow it off. Watch the news later and see what kind of damage it did somewhere else. But this week and the week before that, and, when this thing was coming into the Gulf, it was hot. Man, it's summertime in Louisiana and along the Gulf Coast, and every time I go outside, it's just punishing. It's hot. The humidity is so high that you really just even regret walking to your car. But, whatever. That's the way it is down here. And I think I've said this before, but every summer, I was born and raised down here. And it's every summer, it's like the first time all over again. It's just miserable. We have probably, I don't know, to being conservative about it, maybe 2 months out of the year where the weather is absolutely perfect to be outside. And that's not much. But still, we spend time outside. We live our lives. But this, this past week, it was so damn humid and muggy and just uncomfortable outside. It brought back a memory that I had a long time ago. As a young man, I worked a job as a part of a crew of industrial roofers, and what our job wasn't like walking on pitched roofs and nailing shingles. We worked on commercial buildings that had flat roofs that had this 1.5 foot, 2 foot. It's called a parapet wall around the perimeter of the building, or a knee wall, some people call it. But still, it was a flat roof, and which made it easier. But because it was a flat roof, according to code, I know this is boring, nothing information, but still, because it was a flat roof, we had to use this roll roofing. It was a rubber membrane that you would roll out, and you would heat with a basically a flamethrower, a 3 foot, torch, uh, to melt it to the surface of the roof to, seal it off and make it water resistant, or at least drain the water off. So anyway, I remember working this, doing this job, and we would get up, man, sometimes at 3:30 because we had to, in the summertime when it was hot and dry, we'd work from sun up to almost sundown to take advantage of the dry part of the day, and get as much work done as we could. But excuse me, the majority of the crew were by and large parolees and ex-cons, and it's not that I'm not, highly refined and highly educated and all that, and I don't really look down on, guys like that, because there's a lot of good people that come out of jail and get their shit together and move on. But I was on this crew. There was these two guys, and it's so bizarre that just feeling the heat on me reminds me of all this, which is kind of a good thing because it was a terrible job, and I really appreciate where I am now. But anyway, there were these two guys, and I'll just call them the Coleman brothers, and it was so stupid. They were One of them was a lead guy on the crew, and he was good at what he did. But his brother that came out of jail a little later than he did worked as a helper, and that was like right below where I was. I was kind of a rough end guy. The lead guys would do the finish work, make it look pretty, and do all the important stuff to make it shed water, whatever. And then there were the helpers, the guys who just hauled shit and did the hard, heavy lifting and all that. Well, these two guys were very open about the fact that they weren't ashamed, and they were almost flaunted to people that they were addicted to Xanax. And one of the older brother would come to work, I mean, happy as a lark, singing, and to this day I still don't understand how you get to that point with downers, but whatever. He would come to work singing and just, and then we would be up on the roof doing our thing, and it was fucking miserable. I mean, honestly, if it wasn't 130 degrees up there, maybe more, I felt like I was working in a skillet sometimes. It was just terrible. And this guy, he would unwrap a pill like in a piece of tissue paper, and he would, like he was eating a fucking grape, and he'd be singing and pop it, and like, just go away, shut your face, but he was, he was always nice to work around as far as, as long as he was high. Well, there was this time when he and his brother both, I don't know if the area where they lived in had a big drug raid and supply dried up. These two fucking guys, they came to work, and they weren't even to the point where they were going through withdrawal symptoms. They were just not high, and they were pissed off that their supply dried up. And it came to work just cross as bad, just really in a shitty mood. And both of them, they wanted to sleep all the time on the way to the job in the crew truck. And they were, one of the things that they were proud of and they always talked about. And, these guys were the typical, what you'd expect, weather beaten, looked like, rode hard and put up, wet. Their skin looked like a fucking parchment road map from the 30s. And they had these prison tats that were just have, bled and just smeared under their skin to the point where you didn't even know what they were. But they were all tattered up and really, really just gangster. Had some street cred. And to be, just to let you know, these two guys were white. They were very proud of the fact that they, how this happens in prison, I seriously doubt these days it's allowed. But they were both very proud of the fact that they were skilled boxers in prison, and they had won. And whether this is true or not, but you could tell by the way they moved that they knew how to fight. They did very well in prison as boxers and beat other prisoners, and it's really ridiculous. But everyone, one of the guys was best friends with the older brother. And I'm not going to name specific names because these guys by now more than likely they're probably dead. If they're not dead, they are using pissing and shit into a bag and probably wishing they were dead. But I seriously doubt that they would ever. These guys were of the type that didn't really follow technology. So whatever. The best friend of the older brother was not an ex-con. He was just friends with the guys, and he had helped them out, and he would bring them places. But he was a beer drinker, like most of us on the crew. At the end of the day, whenever you feel like you're being tortured all day, and you get off and you just want to have a few beers and relax and unwind, blow off some steam. So this best friend of the older brother drank Budweiser. It was the old, not light, but the original Budweiser. And one day, the older brother was watching his friend do some work, and it was freaking just hot. And he was the older, I'll just call him the older brother boxer, was in a very jovial mood because he was all freaking high and upbeat, and things were great, even though it was hot as a son of a bitch up there. And he was watching the guy do his work, and he would just rattle off this stupid shit. The chatterbox is what it made him into, and I still don't understand that. But he said, yeah, if old, and I would just call him Harry, because, as a generic name. He said, yeah, if old Harry was sweating, he'd be sweating pure Budweiser. And it was just, meant to be a joke and to poke fun at the fact that the guy liked to drink. And this guy, he was doing his work, a little miniature blowtorch, and he was doing, melting this rubber membrane together and making it look good and shed water and all that. And he didn't even miss, he had a cigarette dangling from his lip. He didn't even hesitate. It just came right out. He said, yeah, if you were sweating, you'd be sweating Xanax. And the fucking guy, the older boxer brother, just flipped his shit, which I don't understand because he was very open about his drug use, but yet if you point it out, it's a problem. He fucking flipped out. He was throwing tools on the roof, just absolutely fucking losing it. And everybody else, me and the rest of the crew, the little younger helpers, and of course the scraggly younger brother of this, the older brother boxer, we're just leaning on our tools and watching it happen. And he was fucking just losing it. And there was this one year, I remember a guy was younger than me. He had I don't know what tribe he was in, but he was an Indian. Really good guy. Yeah, I loved working with him. He was a good, always happy. And he had to go hide. He was laughing so much, he had to go hide because he was afraid that the older brother boxer would see him and start going after him for laughing at him. Because honestly, these guys, we all knew, we were told by the best friend of the older brother boxer that these guys could fight. Laugh at what they did in prison as boxers and whatever, but he said they knew how to fight, and so everybody was aware of that, and we would never get into it with them. We just kind of would let them do their thing and watch them and just sneer and make fun of them off to the side. But we would never open, because the best friend of the older brother boxer said that pound for pound, these dudes were the baddest motherfuckers he ever met. And so because of their background, where they came from. If you ever got into a fight with them, they have nothing to lose. I mean, of course, if they're on parole and they beat the shit out of you, you report them, they're going back to jail. So what is their motivation then? To just fucking finish you off, put you down, or beat you to the point and threaten to come back and kill you. And not. It was really, really just like that. But this little Indian fella was off in the corner and he was laughing his ass off. He couldn't even breathe. And so everybody eventually had kind of simmered down, and Harry was just standing there looking at his friend and kind of giggling and laughing, and things moved on. And it's just so funny that when it's so hot, everyone's fuse shortens probably by 2/3 as far as getting pissed off. But there was this other time whenever the older brother boxer, going back to what I said when their supply dried up, and his younger brother boxer both came to work when they had lost their supply dried up, and they were both in just a surly, salty mood. I mean, the older brother boxer wasn't singing like a lark. He was just really despondent, sitting there and bitching and moaning. And when he got to the job on the roof, the younger brother said something or did something that just absolutely set his brother off. And they went at it. They started fucking screaming and hollering and fighting each other. I mean, they went into their fighting stances, and they both were very good, honestly. I mean, I used to watch HBO, or it was a Friday Night Fights on HBO, if I remember correctly. And these guys, they knew how to fight. And so the older brother boxer was a bigger guy, and he was a brawler. And the younger brother boxer was just a little wiry fucker, and he was fast. So they really couldn't hurt each other. They'd land a few blows, but never really broke any skin. And we were just watching them. And whenever this kind of shit happened, we would just lean on our tools. But everybody, we never made an agreement, but everyone had some kind of a tool, a heavy tool in their hand, in case they just went absolutely berserk. And we were either leaning on shovels or a spud bar, which is basically a 5-foot tall chisel that you would use to scrape stuff off of a roof, like gravel and whatever. And it was a big, heavy object. And the other guys that had their basically these flamethrowers that they would use to apply the roofing material. And these guys were just absolutely screaming at each other, throwing stuff, trying to hit each other. And the fucking foreman comes up there and he's like, "What the hell's going on up here? Why don't y'all break this up?" And we're like, "Are you kidding? We're just going to let them finish each other off and fucking be done with it." And even he laughed and just let them finish their thing. But one of the... you got to know these fucking guys. They were so stupid. They were by and large uneducated, I'm assuming, because of the way they talked. And, the older brother kind of, in some bizarre way, kind of considered himself an intellectual. But he would use, words like dramatically, and just make shit up. But he was, stoned out of his head whenever he would do that. But they could read and write, I'm assuming, because, we'd get a paycheck every week and had to go cash it, unless he would, they would bring it to their fucking 8-year-old kids and let them forge their name for it and just say, "Oh, you cash my check." But anyway, one of them, I think it was the younger brother boxer, they had these prison tasks that I mentioned before, and one of them had, he had on his knuckles, and where you could actually read it from, like we read from left to right. If he held both of his hands together with them balled up in fists, would spell on each knuckle KILLYOU, across the next hand, you, kill you. And which is not surprising considering the kind of guys they were. But he was so fucking dumb. He didn't like the blank space on his last pinky knuckle of YOU, of the one that said you. So he had them put another U Y-O-U-U, kill you. And he didn't even understand that it was a fucking misspelling. He just did it to fill in the space, but he didn't understand. He didn't even understand that it was misspelled. And these motherfuckers, there was one time when I brought one of them to their house, brought him home that, one of the guys didn't show up for work, and so he didn't have a ride home, and his, according to what they would call their ex-old lady, wouldn't come get them and bring them home, which, in modern terms means ex-wife or ex-girlfriend or ex-whatever broad he got pregnant. And I brought him to this house, and as soon as he got out of the car, this was a ramshackle place. And, it's hard when you get out of jail, you get out of prison or whatever, and, to pick up where you left off or try to make a living. But his kid's bike was in the yard, and it was in front of the steps. And I remember he got out of the car, and I was like, I'll see you tomorrow, whatever. And he went to the steps, and he didn't even hesitate. When he got to the steps, he grabbed that. It was a bicycle, like with training wheels. He grabbed that thing and slung it across the fucking yard. I think it was even to the neighbor's yard, and threw the door open and started yelling. I'm like, holy shit. He was screaming, going into the house, like, I'm out of here. I don't want to see a domestic. I really don't see a domestic. And it just, the image of his brother being so proud of the fact he had tattoos on his knuckles that said kill you, and one word was misspelled, but he didn't realize it, just really stuck with me. Moving on, I have an article from theonion.com. It's about this Karen thing.
Why did you do that? Why?
White women demand Karen be labeled a racial slur. This is a satirical article, and I kind of agree. Because if you would use words like, I don't know, Shaniqua, Lucretia, the shit would hit the fucking fan over it. Anyway, white women demand Karen be labeled a racial slur, as white women throwing public temper tantrums to leverage their privilege over others have come to be commonly known as Karens.
Why did you do that? Why?
A group of middle-aged white women is asking prominent civil rights groups to join them in labeling the nickname, which they refer to as the K-word, as a racial slur. I cannot think of a single non-white woman who has ever been called a Karen, said Karen Riley, founder of the group Karens Against Really Enraging Nicknames. The acronym is Karen, so it's clearly racist. If I ever hear anyone use the word around me, you can bet I'll be calling their manager. According to Karen, the acronym, the group, only white women are allowed to call each other Karen as part of an attempt to reclaim the word. I see what's happening here. This is fucking great. Anyone else really needs to refrain from using Karen at all, said Riley. Even if you're just singing along with popular song lyrics, or if you claim that you're using it in a friendly way, like saying Kara without the hard N at the end, we can always tell your real intentions. That is fucking awesome. Great writing. Of course, not everyone agrees that Karen is a racially insensitive term that is used to silence white women. Many argue that it is a fair way to call out the weaponization of white privilege against people of color, such as calling the police on innocent people who are just living their lives. Inventing oppression, when in reality, there is nothing happening to us in our natural defense mechanism, said Becky Taylor, a noted Karen. If I feel the need to have an innocent black man arrested for parking his car in the street directly in front of my house, I shouldn't be subjected to reverse racism for it. When asked how she would feel if the roles were reversed, Taylor quickly said she had much respect for Aunt Jemima, and then immediately called the cops. What interesting times we're living in now, right? Because who knows what's going to happen next between the virus and all of the other tensions. I won't mention them specifically. that are going on. Who knows what the rest of this year is going to look like. I don't like to tempt fate and say what the hell can happen next, but I mean, really, what's going on? Why is this country falling apart? Regardless, that is all the time I have for this week. I'd like to thank the guys at Cinescape Media for hosting me. They're all great guys. And I encourage you to subscribe on YouTube, follow, and download and follow on all the social media that is listed below my podcast. Please. And if nothing else, give me some feedback on what you're hearing. And I also want to mention Tom Velasquez. He has a podcast called The Paranormal Patriot. He's been very kind to me, and I'm running my promo on his show, and I really appreciate it. And I will see you next week. Have a great week, everybody.